Sunday Morning salutes our veterans. Here again is Jane Pauley.
70 years ago, an American military transport plane crashed in remote Alaska. All on board were lost, and over time, forgotten, except by some. Lee Cowan has their story.
There are no white crosses amid the blue of Colony Glacier, even though it's been the resting place for 52 U.S. servicemen locked in frozen limbo here since 1952. It was just 5 days before Thanksgiving. A C-124 Globemaster like this one, on its way to Elmendorf Air Force Base in Anchorage, lost radio contact during a storm. On board, 8 Army soldiers, a Marine Corps major, a Navy commander, and 42 airmen, including Isaac Anderson, who left this letter to his wife behind.
When did he write it?
He wrote it 2 hours before he got on the plane.
That's his granddaughter, Tanya Anderson Dell.
All I want you to do is to write me every day and to stay sweet and be good and take care of my son.
His son would tragically never know his father. The wreckage of Anderson's plane was finally found on the mountain after the storm subsided. According to a report detailing the investigation, most of the debris was buried under snow as deep as several hundred feet. Any attempt to locate the passengers on board, it continued, will be an extremely difficult operation. And so, the plane and its occupants were left buried in the snow and the ice.
I just couldn't understand that we all stand by, we never leave our fallen behind. And with the technology we have today, you found the Titanic. You're telling me that we can't find a C-124 military plane?
This is it, huh?
Yep.
She met us at the Air Mobility Command Museum in Dover, Delaware, where a C-124, just like her grandfather's, is on display.
It's just emotional for me. You know, you wonder, where did he sit? You know, what was he doing?
Although the crash happened during the Korean War, she says the military didn't consider it a combat loss, which, she believes, is why it was forgotten so quickly.
Why? When they put their hand up, they're no different than the one who put his hand up and went missing in action. They're all the same. Treat us the same.
She spent years writing letters to the military, documenting other planes lost in non-combat situations, to no avail. But in 2012 came a break. The Alaska Army National Guard, flying a training mission, spotted something in the spring melt on the glacier. It was as if the plane was reaching through the ice to be freed.
Oh, how I danced, jumped up and down. I called my dad crying on the phone. I'm like, you won't believe it. And I said, they found your dad's plane. And he's like, no, they didn't. He goes, no, they didn't. He goes, somebody else. His luck wasn't that good, is what he said.
But his luck was that good. And that meant it might be good for all family members left behind, like Marcia Yan.
I thought, oh, finally we'll have some closure here.
She's the niece of Captain Jerome Goebel. Marcia was only 7 at the time of the crash. His nephew, Michael Mayer, wasn't even born.
When they found it, it was like, well, here I have all these stories that I've heard and read, and now it's not just a story. Now it's real.
Good morning, everyone. This is day 9 of our recovery efforts at Colony Glacier.
Every year since 2012, a multi-disciplinary team based in Anchorage has been engaged in what is perhaps the longest-running recovery effort in the history of the U.S. Air Force. They come with buckets and patience during a brief weather window that the spring allows. At first glance, you wonder how they find anything.
A lot of times, they won't just jump out at you until it does. It's hard to explain.
Aircraft park here.
The constant churning of the glacier reveals new items every year, while also concealing others.
What you see here is what's left of that aircraft and their belongings. So it's incredibly personal.
Back at the Air Mobility Command Museum, what the ice has been turning up is being preserved. There's shoes and caps and shaving brushes and a lot more.
Oh my gosh.
So it's a personal camera that was recovered.
Was there film in it?
I don't believe so.
Eric Trewinski is the deputy director here.
History is about people, and it's about their stories. It's a memory of them.
As personal as they all are, none of these items could actually be traced to a specific service member. Only DNA can provide a scientific ID, and finding those precious fragments is part of the job of U.S. Air Force Captain Lindy Minot.
We use forceps. Those are metal, and metal scraping rock is a different sound than metal scraping bone.
The remains, bones sometimes as small as a fingernail, are flown to the Armed Forces Medical Examiner at Dover Air Force Base in Delaware for identification. Forensic scientist Tim McMahon is director of DNA operations here.
It strikes me that some of the methods you're using now to identify these servicemen wouldn't have been around in the 50s.
Absolutely. So this occurred in 1952. 1953 is when Watson and Crick defined DNA.
But the technology has come far enough that less than a gram is now needed for a positive match. And that can be hugely comforting to the families.
We developed methods to preserve parts of the bone because we don't know how much of each person we may recover. So if that's the only piece of that missing service member, the family gets something back.
The last decade of searching has certainly paid off. 45 of the 52 service members aboard that C-124 that day have been identified. That includes Airman Isaac Anderson, Tanya Anderson-Dell's grandfather. He was finally identified from a single tooth.
My father, he was just in awe because he watched his father come home after being missing for over 60 years.
Back in that plane, we noticed around her neck 2 dog tags. They are her grandfather's. Both of them were retrieved from the ice as well.
This was the last thing that was on my grandfather's neck. I don't want to cry. So to have these, it makes every phone call, every letter, it makes it worth every hour.
Every year.
But for Marcia and Mick,
We always were hoping that with one of these times my uncle would be part of that. This shouldn't just stop.
the search for their uncle, Captain Jerome Goebel, goes on. He's one of the 7, still locked somewhere in the ice.
When they said that they had found more remains, I was so hopeful this year. It would be nice to have something, just to know that he didn't just vanish.
The task force says as long as remains and artifacts are still being found, and as long as it's safe to do so, the mission on Colony Glacier will continue until all 52 are lost no more.
Being able to find items that we're able to link or trace back to family members and provide that type of closure is honestly the best feeling in the world.